tape for Beheaded by Voltron. Yeah. Alright, so, let's begin, shall we? Damn you, autofocus. I mean, back in 2009, Antarctica was a band, and I didn't know who they were. So let's just fast forward to 2019 when I think it was... I don't know if it was Christian or not, but Christian played guitar in this band and runs Mathcore Index. He posted, I think, the fact that he was in this band, and I was like, oh, well, check it out. And I was absolutely blown away. I was like, this is so good. How have I never heard this before? And then Christian put me in contact with the drummer, Quaid, who I believe actually kind of started this project and wrote the first batch of songs, I think, on most of the instruments, and I'm not sure about that, and definitely also did vocals at points as well. So a bunch of very talented individuals there. So after I got in contact with those two, it was pretty straightforward to being able to get these made. The band was kind of like reforming to eventually do a Mathcore Index Fest performance, which I don't believe ever happened. There was also talks after this of doing a 12-inch vinyl with Dark Trail Records, but as Dark Trail has kind of gone on hiatus, we'll see what happens with that, although I would probably place some bets on it happening. Just saying. So a whole lot kind of went into this tape. One of the big things was I asked the band to give me 25 like tidbits of stories that I could use to put in 25 of the tapes for one of the variants. So I thought this is a very one-off idea that I've never done before. So it's pretty cool. If you got one of these green ones, I'll go through the variants in a second here. So here's number 14. So they're all printed off on like this gold paper, and each of these cassettes has one of these wrapped around. This was also back in the days when I was doing stickering myself. And yeah. So let's go through the variants before I get ahead of myself here. So we did... Making me math, David? God damn it. Okay, so there's 25 of these green ones, which were called Aqua Green Hunger Force, plus original band story. And there was 10 of Transparent Forest Green, 10 Beheaded Red, 10 Rubik's Cube Swirl. I don't know which one this is. I'd have to check it. And then there was 5 test swirls, and one called Purple Roots with a swirl case. One of the things that I did for this release only, because of all the different variants, and I just had an out of one, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go buy a special little box. So I went and bought like a cool little treasure chest thing, which had all of the variants, including the out of one. Let's hope I kept that stock photo. And that, was sold immediately. These are all very sold out, but good news, I kept 2 versions for some reason, so I don't need 2 of these, so I'm going to put this one up in the store right now, in the Canada International Store. If you want it, go get it. I haven't talked about the band's sound at all. Okay, so there's a reason, there's one very obvious reason why I fell for this band, and that is Quentin. Those vocals are very screamo-esque in their delivery, super high, just insanely screamy, and this band has a lot of like sass going into its like mathcore. It's mathcore. I mean, I don't really know. Like, it definitely like borders on screamo and stuff at times, but there's so many parts of these songs that are very math-oriented, and guitar, like just the amount of notes that are being played. Just watched a live video just recently, which you should check out. It's for, if you search for Antarctica Magic Bullet Live, you will see a video where Quentin doesn't even have, I don't think the microphone's even working, just like holding it down here, just sweating profusely, screaming at the top of his lungs, and it's going as loud as the instruments that are being played in this like little living room. It sounds awesome, and you can see all of the technical guitar work that Christian is doing at that time, and Quaid's sitting in the back with awesome hair, playing damn drums. So that was the obvious pull-in at the beginning, and there's songs like Electrocutated, Track 2, and Lasers 30 Airsoft Zero is without a doubt has a bunch of, it's arguably the best song, but also has so many just absolutely fantastic parts. They're kind of, in that song, I feel like that is See You Space Cowboy before See You Space Cowboy was a band. I have no idea if they actually listened to this, like this song, but there's a lot of early See You Space Cowboy is along those lines. Super sassy, really screamy, kind of like a half like yelp thing going on. It's so good. Bunch of breakdowns. Oh my. There's so many good songs like Magic Bullet, Distributing Rhythmic Abuse, Aqua Teen Destroyed Boston's Life, Beheaded by Voltron. They're all pretty much bangers on this one. So let's take a look at one of the tapes. So there's your full art. These initially came out on CD back in 2009. This also is not just the album, it also has the live version of the Magic Bullet, which I think is literally from the video that I was recommending that you go watch for the Magic Bullet. I have a confession to make regarding this band. When I was doing the For Fans of all the time, I was like, yo, Hayworth, like Fall of Troy, and Christian was always like, and number 12 looks like you. And I was like, wow, okay. And I had been mixing up the number 12 Looks Like You with Love Like Electrocution. So although both, you know, maybe on the same end of the spectrum there, very different bands. And upon, I think it was because of a podcast that I had with John from Gift from God and so forth, they told me, they showed me a track from Mongrel, I'm pretty sure. And then I went out and, you know, grabbed their early material, and like the first, like, you know, demo and like EP and stuff are so similar in some ways to this band. I was like, oh wow, I should have just listened to Christian and wrote the thing down because I was thinking of the wrong band. I'm not sure if I've verbalized that yet in any Out Past the Rings, but I felt really silly when I found out, maybe, you know, whatever, 2019, 2020. That band, number 12 Looks Like You, well, was that band, because they're really fucking good. Anyway, I don't think there's much else to say. I mean, most of the work of the tapes themselves went into the swirling, as well as doing the 25 stories, which I'm going to do after the little outro song thing. So maybe we just go ahead and do that. Oh, what's next? I don't even know what's next. Something good. Oh yeah, it's Infant Island Sepulcher. Let's get him some mages! Woo! Alright, I'll see you next time! Let's do it! Forgot about the stories. So here are I think there's like 24 of the 25 stories here. I think I had to go back and ask for one more. Anyway, prepare for some reading. Our first show as Antarctica was opening for this local D&D themed power violence band called Dungeon Master in the utility room of a local Muni auditorium. Every single member of Dungeon Master worked at the local Hot Topic. It was a packed-ass little room, and Quentin drank a shit ton of orange juice before, and he screamed so hard he puked mid-set into a bucket that was next to the stage because we were in a utility closet. There was a video at some point. We had 2 vocalists at the show. Original vocalist David Newland used to pick us all up gas station breakfast burritos wrapped in tinfoil, and he'd keep them warm in his 80s Chevy Suburban engine on the way up to the practice spot. On the way to a show one time, he full-ass cooked like a can of beans and some meat wrapped in foil in the engine. It was always raining at almost every practice. We had two for some reason. The name Beheaded by Voltron comes from this other local band, Embryonic Devourment's album called Beheaded by Volition. It's stupid, LOL, but we ended up all meeting later and becoming homies, and Hunter, who has played in Antarctica since the last few shows, was in Embryonic Devourment during the mid-2010s, after both these albums came out. When we were at the first session of recording for Beheaded by Voltron, we were posting a lot on MySpace, and some kids we'd only talked to on there invited us to see Deers, Discovery of a Lifelong Heir, and a touring band called Mons Wolf in Sacramento at this record store called R5 Rex. The guys who invited us were all Galaga, the movie, and they ended up being like some of our closest homies ever to today. Justin was on crutches this whole session, and Deers was incredible, by the way. We met Moth, Voices, and Galaga, the movie, for the first night of the Robert Downey Jr. tour, 2 months after the release of Beheaded, at an abandoned house on some farmland in Napa, where this dude Paul from this band Planets found an outlet that was still working and just started throwing shows there. Venue actually lasted and booked another one of our projects years later. During SOC era Antarctica, we got booked to play our first show out of town at a skate park, and there was like a MySpace event thing. The booker was posting bulletins about it the night before, and then we all rolled up. No show. We posted for a few hours, went to the beach and ate some engine food, I think. A year later, we ended up being on a bill with the booker's band, and he said he went to jail that night, so they canceled the show but completely forgot to tell us not to show up. Good time regardless. Our first actual out-of-town show was in this town called Clear Lake Oaks, California, not to be confused with nearby Clear Lake. At a Grange Hall, Pirate Punk's death metal battle of the bands, LOL. We tried to smoke out this local band we knew from MySpace, but the guitarist showed us his chew can and was like, now we all stick to the chaw around here. Chaw is slang for chew? Some prog band from Sac won the battle. November 11th, 2008. On the drive down to record Beheaded, Quaid had all this weed he just bought from Justin's dad, and like idiots we pulled over on the side of the freeway in a turnout to smoke, and of course we got rolled on by some highway patrol, and luckily we were in Mendocino, so they just made us pour out, stomp the weed into the pavement, but the whole recording session was done pretty much completely sober. We smoked a lot of nasty cigarettes though. Between the first session, January 2nd to 10th, and the second, April 13th to 17th, Quaid, Quinton, and Justin looked for a drummer. We tried out this dude who said he could play hella good, and then when we got to the spot, he was like an air drummer who had never really sat behind a kit. It was terrible for a few months. Via Craigslist and friends, we ended up with maybe 2 really close picks. One guy who couldn't blast, and another dude who was really good but didn't want to use a double kick, so we eventually decided that we should finish the album with Quaid on drums and find a second guitarist. Justin dipped out at some point during the Craiglistery, and Christian joined on guitar. Quaid stayed on for drums live from that point on. At our release show for Beheaded by Voltron, we had a microwave on stage, and Quinton was cooking, giving out Hot Pockets between songs. Mark and Kevin of Galaga, the movie, picked up a hitchhiker and told him they'd only give him a ride if he played bass in their band. They got hella drunk and rolled around on the stage, throwing their gear around, and the hitchhiker homie looked like he'd never played bass in his life. Everyone walked out of their set silent, with their minds completely blown. The Fresno House Show live vid that's online of us was a show that was supposed to happen at the Chinatown Youth Center with Discovery of a Lifelong Heir and some other out-of-town friends. But right when we showed up, it was getting shut down and moved. A whole new show with new bands got booked right there, and everyone attending CYC just started piling in cars and made it out to the set in Clovis. So fucking hot in that room. Absolutely over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. A few weeks after the Beheaded by Voltron release tour, we were supposed to play at this Mexican food spot in Ukiah, California, where AFI is from. But some of the opening bands played too long, and the show got moved full ass to this barn down the alley last second, and the venue was closing up. Everyone attending the show started grabbing gear and moving the whole set up to the barn, and we got to play a full set. We played our last show at this barn a year later. When we drove down to record Beheaded, In the first session, we took a Buick LeSabre 5-seater sedan with a half stack cabinet and guitars and 3 people, Quentin, Quaid, Justin. The first day was the morning after New Year's, so we had to pick up the engineer recording dude up in a sack and take him to the studio. We didn't have enough room to fit him with the full cabin. Also, Quaid hopped in the trunk and Quentin and Justin pretended they were just the whole band and didn't tell Bob, recording dude. He was back there. Whole time he's asking Quentin, vocalist, all this shit about the tone he wants for the guitar and what drum shit he needs to set up, and he's just making shit up, driving along, and when we rolled up, Quaid popped out and tried to scare him or make him think homies had kidnapped me or some shit, but he just bought we were total freaks. I don't know what he thought was going on. While we recorded... While recording Beheaded, somebody busted into the Buick and took Quentin's iPod, the car's CD player, radio, and some pancakes from IHOP. His iPod was full of 160 gigabytes of emo violence grind from prior to January 2009. He was the screamo god. Losing that collection haunts us to this day. Nothing was backed up. Shout out to OMSB for helping us get some of the collection back together. After that, the recording guy Bob let us crash at the studio. The building and studio was inside this Costco-sized complex that had tons of rehearsal spaces and little rooms, so their bands were in and out of the studio through the whole session. Between tracking, Quentin was whooping them all at NWO versus WCW Revenge N64, and Quaid randomly did some guest vocals on a black metal record. At our first show of the Beheaded tour was in Ukiah with all death metal and thrash bands, and we thought we were going to get beat up because the Booker's MySpace pics looked hella serious and brutal, but they were all total goobers and ended up being some of our best friends ever. Shout out Hunter and Frosty. Christian puked mid-set. We met Luke Kelly that night, who introduced himself to us as his alias Tom Noid. A couple months later, after he'd seen us, the bass... Oh, a few months later, he'd sent us the bass on Beheaded by Voltron and joined the band. Went down to practice with him for the first time and stayed at his mom's house. We crashed in the guest room, and when we woke up, we ran into his mom and asked if she knew where Tom was, and she was so confused and didn't know who we were talking about. Quick side note that I totally forgot to say is that there is another version that has bass on it, and the main version, this one, does not have any bass at all on it. You should definitely check out that other version. It is worth listening to. It's really good. It's just they never really got proper mix downs from it, so it's just like, I feel like it's just MP3s with a bass recording over top of it, but it still sounds really good. I wish they would have been able to like get a full recording of that, because it would have sounded awesome. Got some honorable mentions from Quaid. Big Timer CD stuck in CD player of Buick during summer 2008. Kevin waking up on top of the garbage door holder thing in Mark's garage during the Robert Downey Jr. tour. Later that week we played in a Days Inn and got a free room. Doogie's fave band being Newfound Glory and crying when everyone laughed when he told us in the van. And then Christian sent me a couple of really short ones here. Playing Slacks in Ranch in Napa, which is literally a shack in the middle of a vineyard with a wrapper. Playing a Holiday Inn in Santa Rosa, and because the promoter couldn't pay us, getting 2 hotel rooms, and later that night Marcos of Galaga the movie playing a solo set for Helicopter Blues. Playing that incredibly cramped bedroom in Fresno to the most appreciative crowd we've ever had. Quentin almost killing us on the way to the recording by flipping a bitch in the middle of an intersection. Playing the barn where we had all our rehearsals to a huge group of kids that filled both the upper and lower levels. We played so many house shows in Central California during the summer. Many of them would be in garages or someone's living room, and inevitably someone would end up setting up fans near the bands to prevent us from overheating. And I remember playing Vacaville and hitting my headstock on this fan and it completely going out of tune. One thing we did as a band was just listen to music. We would spend hours just listening and talking about music, and we'd take these really long drives together just smoking and listening to these albums that are now some of my favorite albums of all time. That's probably my most cherished memory. Another thing we did as a band a lot was just binge on Adult Swim shows like Tom Goes to the Mayor and their later show, Tim and Eric. The beginning of The Magic Bullet is actually a musical reference to the intro music of Tom Goes to the Mayor, Jefferson Alive. Aquatine destroyed Boston's life is a quote by our friend Nick Prozzo referencing the show's provocative canvassed advertisement of their full-length feature film. oh my lord, I need to go drink a lot of water. Go check out this album, please. It's really good. Ow, that really hurt my face. Oh shit. Oh. Well, hopefully you stuck around for the stories. Oh, I hurt my chest too. Son of a bitch. Oh, I spent so much time on it. I didn't botch the intro.